This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Does the sheer amount of change going on at the Alpine Formula 1 team suggest they're up for sale? From dropping their Viri engine project to bringing in a new team principal and getting the master salesman Flavio Briatore back into the picture. We don't know what's going to happen, but you can't deny that turning this works team into a customer team would make it easier to sell. Formula 1 is a marketing arm first and foremost, so I want to talk business. Which brands, big or small, would make the most sense to take over this frustratingly disappointing F1 team? I asked you, and I suggested a couple myself. My name's Tommo. Let's talk about it. In out, Honda all about. TK suggested Honda either as a junior kind of setup, what V-Carb is to Red Bull, or a standalone entry, which is more exciting, surely. Stick Yuki and Aimu in the car, both Honda drivers. You know, Honda well on their way to developing this engine project with Aston Martin for 2026. Bosch. Enstone get the engine that they're looking for, and Honda get their own Formula 1 team. Not that Lawrence Stroll and Aston Martin would be particularly happy about this. I'm sure it's well written into their deal that this is somewhat exclusive, because that's what makes the Aston Honda deal as exciting as it is. When you've got exclusive use, it essentially turns Aston Martin into a factory works team, and there's a lot of pros that come with that, or at least theoretical pros. Realistically, it's getting a bit silly now, though. I do actually see Honda buying up another team when they're getting into bed so closely with Aston Martin. No, what I do see is more likely is at some point in the future Lawrence Stroll gets bored with the project, be that Lance wants to get out, maybe he's not seeing a return on his investment for Aston Martin, and then Honda just take over that team. That wouldn't happen anytime soon, don't get me wrong, but I still see that more likely than Honda buying Enstone. It's a C for me. Not happening. Now, I've got to follow up Honda with Toyota, because there have been genuine, legit murmurings as of late that they're interested in collaborating, actually, with Haas. A mutual relationship where Haas get use out of Toyota's Cologne wind tunnel facility, which is more than just a wind tunnel facility. Obviously, McLaren used to use it. A lot of teams have used it in the past. It's a significant motorsport department. Masaya Kaji, Toyota Gazoo Racing General Manager, has been pictured with Haas, and Akio Toyoda with Zach Brown at McLaren. Toyota young driver Ryo Harakawa is part of the McLaren setup. We know there have been conversations between Zach Brown and Toyoda about Toyota and McLaren coming together in some kind of form, and if it doesn't, could Toyota having their own entry be the next best thing? Because I can imagine, right, they're somewhat traumatized through their last experience with Formula 1 in the 2000s, where they threw more money than anyone at that team and achieved absolutely nothing apart from a sick livery. Gradually forming a strategic partnership with McLaren, or more likely Haas, definitely seems more sensible. But then you look at Toyota, one of the biggest automotive manufacturers in the world, and they're like, they've got to do it themselves properly. Surely. F1 is much closer front to back than it was back when they were last in the sport, and there's an enforced budget cap of $135 million, so even if they want to spend themselves into oblivion, they're literally not allowed to. Now, Toyota have stated they're all in on hydrogen, at least from an engine development point of view, for the foreseeable future. But again, if Enstone broker a Mercedes deal on the engines, which seems most likely, Toyota could just come in, use the Mercedes PUs, at least for the short to medium term, with maybe an idea in the future that they change their mind and do decide to build their own Toyota power unit for Formula 1. I don't trust Honda dipping their toes back into F1 team ownership, but I do Toyota. So I'm liking this one. I'm giving it an A. But you know what else is an A from me? Today's video sponsor, Squarespace. That's right. If you're looking to build your very own beautiful online home, maybe as a prospective Formula 1 team buyer, if you've got the money, I reckon building your own website to promote this new venture would be a great idea. Squarespace uses a guided website design system called Squarespace Blueprint to help you navigate the design process with ease. Professionally curated layouts give you an easy starting point, and then you can make it your own, optimized for all devices. And integrated search engine optimization tools means that more people will see your website more often. I've been using Squarespace for years, predating this YouTube channel, and especially because it's completely free to try. It's only when you want to publish your website that you have to pay anything. I'm more than happy to promote them to you. So head to squarespace.com/TOMMO'S to get 10% off of your very first website or domain. First Rogue One, this is one of my recommendations. I'm taking credit for this. Okay, Tag Heuer is both a modern and historic partner in Formula One. It's one of those brand logos that you see and you just think of F1 straight away. They've had an exclusive sponsorship deal with the Monaco Grand Prix up until recently. They're a big prominent sponsor on the Red Bull, and even go back to the Marlboro McLaren days, and you got Tag Heuer right there. Now, it was reported earlier this year that Rolex are looking to end their global sponsorship of Formula One at the end of this year, and Tag Heuer, although specifically through their parent brand LMVH, are looking to take over that deal, which is reportedly worth $150 million a year. That's more than the F1 budget cap. LVMH own Hublot, Bulgari and Moe too, but Tag Heuer seemed the most appropriate fit for an F1 audience that is already very receptive to the brand. So we know that LVMH, if they are prepared to spend $150 million a year on a sponsorship deal, they could spend $135 million instead on a budget capped F1 team. The question is, are they prepared to stump up the 1.5 billion whatever Alpine is worth? It's only worth what someone's prepared to pay for it, to buy that team in the first place and then take on those costs. I mean, given the brands in their portfolio, in 2023 they had a revenue of $86 billion and a net profit of 16. So that could be one hell of a lucrative billboard, not just for Tag Heuer, but also use that platform as a way of promoting the other brands in the organisation. I'm putting them in A. This works on so many levels. Honestly, the only reason I'm not putting it in S is just because I guess they're not an automotive brand, but maybe it's a bit of a long shot, but I think it could really work. Lotus. Now this is a very interesting one. You can't, of course, deny the legacy of Lotus and Formula One. They are inherently connected. Colin Chapman literally founded Lotus, for crying out loud. As Raghav mentions, they've done it before with this Enstone team as well. Not even 10 years ago, the Lotus name was on that car, although you actually had two teams with the Lotus name. Long story. Lotus might seem a bit irrelevant now to some, but they are coming back in 2017. Chinese automotive powerhouse Geely, who own a majority stake in Volvo, Polestar and Smart, and LEVC, the company who make the electric London cabs, they purchased Lotus. Now we're starting to see Lotuses, or Lotus, I guess, on the road. The Emira, I think, looks wonderful. The Electra is big, and the Avia is an absolute monster. I've long criticised Alpine for not having hardly any road cars outside the A110. So what are you doing promoting your brand when you've got nothing to sell? Lotus are making performance cars. They've got the backing of Geely, and actually there is a bit of a pre-existing, or at least past tense pre-existing, relationship between Geely and Renault. They had been collaborating on a future EV sports car vision for more than 2 years, a project between Renault and Geely that began in 2021. But then last year, Lotus said that we have decided not to progress with the joint development of a sports car for Alpine. The parallels between the two brands are quite clear. I think it makes a lot of sense if Renault do want to sell up that Geely could cash in, and Lotus is the brand in their portfolio that makes most sense to be aligned with Formula One by far and away, okay? But they own other brands as well. They own Zeekr, which is a huge brand in China. We know the appetite for Chinese F1 is only growing. We saw the reception Zhou Guanyu got. In fact, Zeekr and Zhou Guanyu, he's literally a brand ambassador for Zeekr. There'd be a flood of positive sentiment bringing that Lotus brand name back to Formula One as well. Slight negatives. There's plans to move the entire Lotus lineup to electric, fully electric by 2028. Does that align with Formula One? Maybe not, but all in all, they're incredibly well positioned to do this. For me, this is an S. This is the most compelling business case so far. Now I'm putting these two big German automotive giants together because I feel broadly the same way about both. Both have history in Formula One, BMW of course more recently. Both have WEC entrants, Porsche's has been a bit more successful. And both have very healthy coverage in motorsport and GT categories more generally, especially Porsche with their, the amount of Carrera Cups going on, Jesus Christ. But also both have outwardly said that they are not interested in getting into F1, at least right now. BMW Motorsport boss Andreas Roos was quoted earlier this year saying F1 is always interesting, but for us as a brand at the moment, it's not on the radar, or it's not in the right window, let's say, for us where we would say we want to participate. Then literally a couple of days ago, Porsche Motorsport boss Thomas Ludenbach said it is off the table. Right now, F1 is not a task for us and we are not spending any energy on that. Now, of course, Porsche were only very recently really close to brokering a deal with Red Bull, the deal that is now with forward, of course. But alas, it wasn't to be, and it seems that they've fully moved on from that idea, at least for now. Maybe in time, as things die down and the sport progresses, maybe they'll be interested in coming back, but not anytime soon. And look, I get it. I don't think they'd find massive value for their own independent brands being in F1, because Porsche and BMW are already so highly considered from a motorsport point of view. I mean, I know BMW is getting a bit bloated now. I suppose maybe that's one thing. But either way, they're not going to see the value that a lot of other brands would. It'd be cool to see they have the money to do it, but no, I'm putting them in C. Now, Flex had a very interesting suggestion. Disney. Alpine are already rocking Deadpool liveries. Is it too much of a stretch to think that an entertainment company the size of Disney could see this moving billboard that is Formula One as a realistic option? They do roughly 100 billion in revenue per year with an 11% profit margin this last quarter. Disney own Marvel, ESPN, Pixar, Lucasfilms, the list goes on. Disney also, if you ask me, has a bit of an image problem. I hear Disney and I still just think kids movies, not even teenage, I think kids movies. Could create a Disney Formula One team that showcases all of these more modern parts of the Disney brand that aren't just kids movies. Could that in time change the perception of the broader Disney brand? I think it's got legs. Look, people thought it was crazy when an energy drink brand came in and decided to take over an F1 team, let alone then becoming the dominant force. So I'm giving Disney a B. Kind of like it. Right, so a quick overview on the history of Hightech. Founded as Hightech Racing Limited in 2002, reformed in partnership with Ollie Oakes as Hightech GP Limited in 2015, and then a 75% stake of Hightech GP was gradually acquired by Dmitry Mazepin from then on. Then, of course, after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Mazepin's shares were relinquished to Ollie, who then became the sole kind of director, 100% shareholder of that company. And then finally in 2023, a 25% stake of Hightech GP was sold by Ollie to the richest person in Kazakhstan, Vladimir Kim, which aligned with their unsuccessful attempt to get an F1 entry off the ground, just as Andretti had tried, just as Lucky Sons had tried as well. It's hard to say, right, whether Ollie Oakes moving from Hightech to Alpine as team principal is gonna be a route for Hightech to get in. Because according to Companies House, Ollie is still listed as director of Hightech Grand Prix Limited. Hightech have brought many a household name through the ranks, be that George Russell or Alex Palou in Euro F3, be that Liam Lawson in F2, be that Paul Aaron right now doing really well in F2. Perhaps Oakes can get in, restructure that team in a way that he's like, okay, right, just give me the money, investors, and then we can take this over because I'm already doing the groundwork today in 2024. Kim's net worth is $3.6 billion, so bankrolling an Alpine takeover would require more money, I think, than he can bring to the table. And of course, then we've heard rumours about Mazepin's coming back in. They would need more funding, they would need more support to get a purchase of Alpine across the line. For me, the vibes are off. I do get the logic, but it still seems they're a really long way from actually getting this done, from actually being able to stump up the money to buy Alpine and outbid all these other entrants. I'm giving it a C. I really don't see this happening. And a lot of you recommended it, but for me, no. Now, Parker mentioned Prema, another independent race team who, like Hightech, have operated in junior formulas for years and generally been very successful at that. They're also starting an IndyCar program in 2025 to complement the fact that they're already operating Lamborghini in the World Endurance Championship. René Rosen has overseen a very successful junior team here, right? But again, the difference between going from junior to a senior team, it's all money, it's all backing. Hightech need investors to get into F1. Prema exactly the same, and it's less clear and obvious, at least from the outside looking in, where Prema would find those investors. The way I see this happening is if Prema were to align with another brand, an established automotive brand, kind of like Andretti have done with Cadillac. I reckon maybe Prema, if they were to align with Lamborghini and be like, come on Lambo, you build an engine for 2028, let's say, right, 26 is too close for that. You build an engine for 28, Lamborghini and Prema, both based out of Italy, Andretti and Cadillac both based out of the States. I think that's what you need to be bringing to the table. And if Prema can do that, Lambo can bankroll it as well. Realistically though, if I'm giving Hightech a C, I've got to give Prema a C, because Hightech could do the same. Hightech could combine with a Lamborghini or some other automotive brand to get it across the line. But I just don't see as strong a business case for these junior teams to get it done, unfortunately. Andretti just recently opened up a Silverstone base to spearhead their continued intention to get into Formula 1. They're not getting in ahead of 2026. So whatever they're doing right now is kind of preparing for the future. Unless, of course, their appeals to the US courts do actually, get them in earlier, right, and force the hand of Formula 1. Now, recently, Otmar Safnauer spoke of working with a bunch of US-based investors for a potential 11th team, but not Andretti. I've been working with some organisations in North America, the funding to start an 11th team. It's not Andretti. Now we're just putting some of those building blocks in place to make sure that we have everything that's required in order to be successful, both a starter team, but also to get an entry. Could this be Penske? Maybe let me know in the comments below. Which team do you think Otmar is aligning with? It might not even be a team, it just might not be a bunch of rich people who just want to start an F1 team. Who knows, right? It's kind of interesting to consider who it could be, but Penske would make a lot of sense. But anyway, if Andretti took over Enstone, it probably does start to get a bit messy, because obviously they've got this Silverstone base already and they've got 80 plus staff there. Enstone obviously has close to 1,000. So what happens with staff? I mean, it's like 30 miles away, Enstone to Silverstone. It's like a 45-minute drive, so it could work. But also we know that Andretti has ambitions to eventually move the bulk of this F1 operation to their Fishers, Indiana base that is still under construction. We know they were quite far in negotiations with Sauber to purchase that team in 21, but that fell through. If Renault put their team on the market, would that really be the optimum now for Andretti? It feels like they've gone so far now into this whole 11th team thing and they're really pushing for it. Yet F1 only want to allow it if Cadillac can bring an engine, which they can't until 2026. It feels like they just want to start from a fresh sheet of paper, and Enstone wouldn't offer that. Do it yourself, pay the dilution fee, which will probably triple to like 600, 800 million, some ridiculous figure, but still cheaper than buying a pre-existing setup. But then Andretti have got to wait until 2028 until the Cadillac engine is ready versus getting in earlier and then taking on a customer. Is there the value in getting in earlier and doing 2 years? There's a lot of complicated hypotheticals going on. When I think about everything together, I would probably say I think the ship sailed. No, I don't think they will buy Alpine, and I think it actually maybe makes more sense for them to persist with the courts / just go for 28. So I'm going to give it a B. It's not as vibey as it once was, at least the idea of buying another team. But I hope Andretti get in. And finally, last but by no means least, we have Hyundai. Not Hyundai. Hyundai is how the Koreans pronounce it. That is how we will pronounce it. Now, I've spoken many a time about my belief that they are destined for Formula 1. I even did a video, didn't I? Where I made the livery and did all the drivers and stuff. Give it a watch. And there have been legit rumours linking them to F1, right? Nothing's concrete, of course. But when Cyril Beatable, ex-Renault, remember, ex-Enstone team principal, joined Hyundai's WRC division at the end of 2023, that obviously added to the rumour mill and has actually been pretty successful in that job. You've got to look at where Hyundai are. Thierry Neuville, one of them, with 4 rounds to go, he leads the WRC, and Hyundai are 20 points clear of Toyota Gazoo Racing at the top of the constructors. That WRC Challenger is built out of the Hyundai Motorsport base in Germany, and they're also heavily rumoured to be working on a World Endurance Championship entry. Cyril was recently interviewed by Dirtfish, and when asked about these rumours, he said, "We can do several programmes at the same time. Absolutely, it doesn't necessarily mean the end to WRC. If a Le Mans programme is announced, the answers will come in due course." World Endurance Championship definitely seems to be, realistically, the more immediate choice for Hyundai, and WEC is doing really well at the minute in terms of getting manufacturers in. Aston's, soon to join. You've got Alpine, you've got BMW, you've got Porsche, you've got Toyota, you've got Lamborghini, you've got Cadillac, you've got all these big brands at the table already. It seems to be in a really good, healthy place. But ultimately, the decision to move to F1 will not be Cyril's. I am president of the execution of a strategy that is decided absolutely above my level. I report to a number of people, including the CEO, chairman, head of brand, and brands. An announcement could well be imminent on their future of WRC and potential future in WEC. So watch this space. But back to F1, of course, Cyril will be very familiar with the goings on at Enstone and whether this, is a team and a project that he feels like Hyundai can come in and achieve any kind of semblance of success with, because if you're not gonna, what's the point? And Hyundai definitely have the money to do it. They are an absolute powerhouse in Korea, only second to Samsung, really, right? But the more interesting point to me is what brand they would put on the car, because Hyundai Group, they have numerous brands, but the three main ones are, of course, Hyundai, Genesis, and Kia, which I think you can make kind of arguments for all three being on the car. Formula One could be an opportunity to really help distinguish these three brands as well, because I feel like there's too much overlap. And actually, I think that's something that Renault do quite well, because Renault have three. They have Renault, they have Alpine, and they have Dacia. And Dacia is clearly the cheaper, more accessible way in to that family. Renault is the established name and kind of sits in the middle between premium but a little bit more cost effective, and then Alpine is the high performance, and they're bringing out the Alpine version of the Renault 5 and all these other cars that are on the way. That's positioned, you've got that clear kind of hierarchy there, because I don't think Hyundai really have that. I mean, Genesis is billed as the luxury version of Hyundai, what Lexus is to Toyota, what Infiniti is to Nissan. That's fine, but then Hyundai and Kia both broadly been seen as quite cheap entry-level brands. However, in more recent years, they have both elevated themselves into what I think is quite a similar position. So like with Hyundai, they do like the Tucson, some like SUV, but also the iconic 5N, right, which is just this absolute weapon, massive electric car. And obviously the N division is equivalent to BMW's M or AMG for Mercedes. Hyundai's kind of moving into a performance, like more premium. They're not cheap and accessible anymore like they used to be. And Kia, they make the EV6 and the EV9, which are two of the biggest, most powerful electric cars on the market. They're not accessible anymore. How are Hyundai positioning these three brands? Because it feels like Kia and Hyundai are just trying to appeal to the same customer. But please, Hyundai, just get it in gear, buy the team, I beg, right? It just makes so much sense on so many levels. Maybe they'll get sidetracked with their World Endurance Championship ambitions, apparent ones anyway. It's an S. It's just an S for me. This will always make sense, and until they do it, I will keep banging that drum. So hurry up. But let me know what brands I missed. What brands out there, they could be nothing to do with automotive. Those are the ones I'm most interested in, like the Disneys and the Tag Heuers. Who could come in and actually benefit from being in Formula One and bring something new and different and exciting? Let me know in the comments below. My name's Tomo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.